Today I'm going to teach you how to crochet thermal crochet stitches in rounds. So let's get started. So first you're obviously going to make a chain. As long as you like, feel free to just practice first. I'm just going to do a random number here. It really does not matter. Once I'm finished, I'm going to connect the first and the last stitch together using a slip stitch. Now we're going to start with just single crochet stitches in the first round. So you're going to insert your hook into one of the loops and place single crochet stitches. Once you reach the end, you're going to do a slip stitch. I like to do the slip stitch directly into the slip stitch. That way I make sure that I don't have any extra stitches or I forget something. So then I use a stitch marker and mark my slip stitch right here so I know where my slip stitch is when I come back around. The thermal crochet stitches are made slightly different than regular stitches, okay? Because you're going kind of in a zigzag upwards. So that means you're doing half a row on this side, then half a row on the other side, and so forth, and going in a zigzag up. Okay, so I'm using the single crochet stitch here as an example, but this also works for thermal crochet stitches using, like, let's say the half double crochet, etc. Okay, so I'm going to move my stitch marker out of the way, and now we are going to work kind of backwards. We're going to go back here. So this is where we came from, but now we're going to go back in this direction, okay? So I like to kind of hold my project sideways because it's much easier to see where you're inserting your stitches. So let's move that stitch marker to the side. So here's our first stitch, and you're going to insert your hook into the back loop of the stitch. So here's that stitch, right? So here's the V. You're going to go into the back loop and into the loop parallel on from the chains. Okay, so you have your chains that you had made, right? So there is a loop. There's actually two loops left over. You're going to use one of them in order to crochet your single crochet stitch on top of it. I'm using single crochet stitch. As I said, you can use another stitch as well. So insert it here, and the loop that is parallel to it, that is the leftover loop from the chains, from the first from the chains that you made. So yarn over and insert, and then do your stitches. So you're going to do that all the way around. So simply look which loop here, the back loop, and then which loop is parallel to it. So that would be this one. And then just make your single crochet stitches. It's ideal for you to learn the stitch in rows first before you attempt to do this in rounds. So I'm going to finish up here the round using the single crochet stitch. Once I hit the slip stitch, I'm going to be back. Okay, so now I finished my very first round of thermal single crochet stitch. So now we need to connect it back over. And as you can see now, this is much easier now that I had that slip stitch with the stitch marker. So to make it easier, just grab that slip stitch and place another slip stitch on top. So I'm going to take off that stitch marker and put it now onto the new slip stitch that I had just made. So if you put it into the back area of it, might be easier when you then go back around. So now that I finished this, we need to turn. Rounds are done a little bit differently for the thermal crochet stitch. So now that I've finished this area, I need to now go back the other direction, so where I came from. So again, I like to hold it in this direction, especially in the beginning, because it's much easier to see. So here's my slip stitch, and then here's my next stitch, right? It's the last stitch I actually just made. So we're going back into the back loop here. So you're going to see that there's always a leftover loop, right? And we're going to get to that in the following round. So, which means this down here, that loop over here is the leftover loop from the previous round. So that's where we're inserting our hook into. So it's always two loops. It is the back loop and the leftover loop from the previous round. So then place your single crochet stitches right into it. So these rounds are simply connected in between, but you're actually just working them up like you would do in rows. So you're just going back and forth. You're not technically going in circles. So now you're just going to continue on until you hit your slip stitch, you make a slip stitch, and then you work your way backwards. So if I hold the circle like this, if I hold my rounds like this, I'm going to crochet this direction, hit the slip stitch, make a new slip stitch, and then go back this direction. Slip stitch, this direction, slip stitch, this direction. So technically you're just making C's going back and forth, and that is how you're doing the rounds for the thermal crochet stitches, any of them. So whether it's single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, you're doing it all in the same way, okay? And that way you're doing your rounds and you're going to go bigger and bigger and bigger, and you connected it's pretty much you're working in rows, but you're just having the slip stitches there to be connected. Make sure you have a chain of 1 in between. You can also have a chain of 1 after the slip stitch. It's easier to see where the next stitch is. But it is not necessary if you don't want to. As long as you know which one is your first and last stitch, you're good to go. I hope this video was helpful on how to do rounds using the thermal crochet stitches. It is really much easier than you might think. As long as you know how to do the thermal crochet stitches in rows, you should be fine doing them in rounds. Make sure you also check out my increases as well as decreases for thermal crochet stitches and on how to do a circle. Let's say if you want to make a beanie. So go check that out as well. Be sure to like, comment, and share this video, as well as subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on the bell to get a notification next time I publish a new video or go live. I'll see you then. Bye!